Even though cholesterol or HDL cholesterol levels go down in serum when supplementing with GC1 at various dosages, it doesn't mean that it gets stored in the liver. Actually, it gets more excreted through the liver in the form of bile acids, especially allegedly if you combine this with TUDCA. Now, I know what you're thinking, nanomoles per kilogram of body weight. How do I dose that, Stevie? No stress, homies. I already did the nanomoles to micrograms conversions for you guys, so you don't have to. And I also extrapolated to the human equivalent dose, so you know what to expect. The details are on the screen. Let that scroll a little bit so you can take some notes if you want to. And if you convert the animal dose to the human equivalent dose, they investigated for a 100 kilogram bodybuilder, a dose of GC1 at 14.35 micrograms, 63.89 micrograms, 127.78 micrograms, and 258.32 micrograms daily, which are not dosages unheard of. But for T3, the dosages are a little bit more crazy. 28.54 micrograms, that's a replacement dose. And now we go nuts. 126.65 micrograms, 253.38 micrograms, and 511.95 micrograms daily. The lowest dose I can agree with, but all the other dosages, I think not. You would literally melt through this much catabolism. And while I think that the dosages for sorbitol are somewhat reasonable, I mean, it's not unheard of that a 100 kilogram bodybuilder takes between 200 micrograms to 250 micrograms sorbitol over the day. When you look at the T3 dosages, besides the first dose being close to the replacement dose, all of the other dosages are reaching into the catabolic territory. So to keep things fair regarding the results and applicable to the real world, we'll only compare the 5.4 nanomoles per 1 kilogram of body weight daily dosage range stemming from the animal model, giving you about 0.14 micrograms of GC1 per 1 kilogram of body weight, or 0.29 micrograms T3 per 1 kilogram of body weight, whether you take that orally or by intramuscular injection. Again, in the animal model, it's intraperitoneal injection, which is somewhat comparable to intramuscular injections, but humans would take their sorbitol or T3 orally. Which would give you 14.53 micrograms GC1 or 28.54 micrograms T3 daily for a 100 kilogram bodybuilder, even though a 100 kilogram bodybuilder would probably end up somewhere between 100 micrograms to 200 micrograms GC1 sorbitol over the day. Looking at the results of this study, there was a dose-dependent reduction in serum cholesterol levels, where GC1 offered a more potent effect compared to T3 at the molar equivalent dosages. Both compounds lower HDL levels, so that's not very promising, not good news, to say the least. T3 increased VLDL cholesterol at higher dosages, and it also increased triglyceride levels at lower dosages, but GC1 did not. GC1 reduced serum triglyceride levels, but T3 did not. So let's see, both compounds lower HDL levels. T3 actually increased VLDL cholesterol and increased triglyceride levels, but GC1 actually lowers triglyceride levels. So in this direct comparison between GC1 and T3 regarding lipid changes, I would say that GC1 wins. The discrepancy in lipid changes is probably due to the increase in food intake, as mentioned in the previous study in the T3 groups, making you extremely hungry. GC1 reduces serum HDL levels by increasing HDL receptor SRBI in the liver by approximately 240% in the 48 nanomole group, which translates to 1.28 micrograms per 1 kilogram of body weight daily for humans, or 127.78 micrograms for a 100 kilogram bodybuilder to be exact, which again isn't a dose that's unheard of. Anywhere between 100 micrograms to 200 micrograms sorbitol over the day for bodybuilders is actually very common. So you can expect for that dosage range that your HDL levels drop by a good amount through the increase in HDL receptor SRBI in the liver. Liver HDL receptor SRBI increased by approximately 115% in the T3 groups, using the same 48 nanomole dosage, so that's less compared to GC1. It's almost half less, and it's comparing molecule for molecule, not microgram for microgram. Even though the potential for thyroid receptor beta-1 binding is the same between GC1 and T3, GC1 is about 2.1 times more potent at increasing hepatic HDL receptor SRBI content compared to T3, and thus should reduce serum HDL levels a lot more when comparing molecule for molecule at molar equivalent dosage ranges. When comparing milligram for milligram though, with GC1 being half the molecular mass but twice the potency of T3 regarding this HDL receptor SRBI content in the liver, the reduction in serum HDL should be about the same, again, when comparing milligram for milligram. The large reduction in serum cholesterol was not accompanied by an increased level of cholesterol in the liver, suggesting that HDL cholesterol uptake increases the elimination of cholesterol as bile acid. So even though cholesterol or HDL cholesterol levels go down in serum when supplementing with GC1 at various dosages, it doesn't mean that it gets stored in the liver. Actually, it gets more excreted through the liver in the form of bile acids, especially allegedly if you combine this with TUDCA. Bile acids in stool increased by 45% in the 48 nanomole GC1 group and by 30% in the 48 nanomole T3 group, and cytochrome P450-7A1 messenger RNA levels, the enzyme responsible for bile acid synthesis in the liver from cholesterol, increased by 225% in the GC1 group, whereas it only increased by 175% in the T3 group. So again, these are molecule for molecule comparisons, the molar equivalent dosage range, and you see that GC1 is a lot more potent in increasing bile acids in the liver and thus improve detoxification quite significantly. So this suggests that GC1 is about 1.5 times more potent than T3 in increasing bile acids and CYP7A1 enzymes in the liver when comparing molecule for molecule, but still 0.25 times less potent when comparing microgram for microgram. Honestly, there's a lot more to the study, and I would highly suggest you to give this one a read to get the total picture, following the citations listed down below. Again, it's based on an animal model, but this is the best we have at our disposal since human scientific data comparing soboterone to triiodothyronine is basically completely lacking. And the last study I want to highlight goes over the effects of soboterone and triiodothyronine regarding heart function. It also goes over various changes to lipid levels, but let's skip over that as we already discussed that extensively in the evidence-based unique characteristics. This study was performed by Trost et al., published in September 2000, so that's even a longer time ago in a galaxy much further away than the previous studies, titled The Thyroid Hormone Receptor-Beta-Selective Agonist GC1 Differentially Affects Plasma Lipids and Cardiac Activity. In this study, hypothyroid mice were administered by intraperitoneal injection with comparable molar equivalent dosages of either GC1 or T3 at 1.8 micrograms, 8 micrograms, and 16.2 micrograms GC1 per 1 kilogram of body weight daily, or 3.5, 15.8, or 31.5 micrograms T3 per 1 kilogram of body weight daily. Now, in this study, they mentioned nanograms per grams, which I converted to micrograms per kilograms because this concentration is a little bit more familiar and very comparable to all of the other previously mentioned studies in this video. So nanograms per grams, no thanks. Micrograms per kilogram is what we want to discuss. In this study, the researchers tried to investigate at which dosage overall thyroid function was replaced by exogenous T3 or a supplemental GC1, where body weight and heart rate were restored to baseline with minimal additional side effects. Treatment with 1.8 micrograms and 8 micrograms GC1 per 1 kilogram of body weight did not increase body weight or heart weight to body weight ratio in hypothyroid mice, but in the 16.2 micrograms GC1 per 1 kilogram of body weight group, heart weight was significantly increased and body weight increased slightly. No toxic effects were observed in the mice treated with GC1 at these various dosages. T3 had a dose-dependent effect on heart rate, where all dosages of T3 increased heart rate compared to baseline measurements or the control group. Only the 8 micrograms and 16.2 micrograms GC1 per 1 kilogram of body weight daily groups had an increase in heart rate compared to baseline measurements or the control groups. At the lower dosages, there were no changes observed in heart rate. GC1 treatment also restored blood pressure to baseline levels,